Hello Nikki, hello Transport Evolved. It's Monday, you can't see this, but I have a dog down here who's a new addition to my family. I know, not very good for CO2 emissions. Anyway, let's talk. I understand what you're saying about asking people to move when they're rapid charging. I was at a Nissan dealer rapid charging on Wednesday when I went to pick up my lovely dog. He's called Snoopy, by the way. And I went there and I used the Nissan dealers as my backup rapid charge network when the public one isn't working. And unfortunately, the one public one I needed has been down for quite a long time. So I went to the Nissan dealer and they were rapid charging a car that was yet to be delivered. And it was at 80% when I got there, and I had to sit for 20 minutes for it to crawl all the way up to, wow, it didn't even get sort of 92 by the end. And it was infuriating because, well, they needed it done and I was using their facility and I had to wait when I only needed to plug in for 10 minutes. And it was just slightly annoying. So these problems are actually becoming evident with the number of cars we have on the road today, which I think is quite interesting, which suggests to me we need a more redundant network than we have at the moment. There's some interesting maths going on, I think. Maths with an S. I agree, maybe my intelligence system with the quality of service, but I think if you went to that location knowing that you might not get the full power of the charge you were plugged into, it would be understandable. And this wouldn't be in every location, it would just be in locations where upgrading the power supply was prohibitive. And yes, I think more offices and more bosses should install charging stations. And in fact, I think they should be everywhere. And they're cheap. The relatively low voltage and low current ones are cheap to install. So let's just whack them in everywhere. Get them everywhere. It doesn't matter that they're low powered. Just put them there. Any charging is better than none. And yeah, the H2 range extender is a very interesting idea. But as someone who commented, and I forget their name, sorry, is hydrogen really the best fuel to use as a range extender in that way? Maybe petrol is actually a better option, as can be seen in the current cars that do that. Or maybe even gas, or maybe LPG, or biofuel. Are there other fuels that we could use that would actually be more efficient than hydrogen? Travelling light, yeah, I think it's something going forward that we're going to have to get more used to. And I like that you started your piece about should we be travelling lighter by essentially complaining or commenting on, at least in what sounded like a slightly degenerative way, in the fact that they had the smallest take-on allowance, this airplane had the smallest take-on allowance. And I think it's very interesting because it goes back to my belief that the generation before us and our generation to an extent were raised in a world with abundant energy. They didn't need to think about energy. If you wanted an electric device, you just got it and you plugged in and it worked. Energy was everywhere. And we're moving into a world where energy concerns are actually going to be quite a big thing in our future lives. We're going to be making choices about how much should we spend on food shopping and how much should we spend on petrol to commute to work to get more money so we can buy things like fuel and food. It's energy in its wider sense is going to become much more important to us as we move forward. What did I want to talk to you about? Well, I'm very sorry I missed the 200th episode of Transport Evolved. I was very ill. I'm feeling a lot better now. But that BBC trip, the long range EV trip, where they took a first time EV driver and she drove 280 miles, or maybe even a bit more than that, in a Leaf, and she set off knowing the first charger wasn't working. It was a madness. And then this Sunday we've got someone on one of those electric mobility scooters, which are kind of like neighbourhood electric vehicles but maybe a bit smaller, more like in the US what you'd see going around shopping malls and stuff, those kind of mobility scooters. They're doing the longest trip on one of them, and they can only go a maximum of 10 miles an hour, and they think they're going to get 200 miles. I don't think these are actually good for EVs, and we've had this discussion over and over again. And there were comments out there, I saw comments about if you want an EV that works in the modern day, you need a range extended one or a Tesla. And I can kind of see that argument, but it does miss a point that Tesla also built the Roadster. And if we use the Roadster to ferry a 11-a-side football team to the next village over, it's not the best vehicle to use it in, and it's an unfair test. And I think that's what these long-range EV tests are. They are unfair tests. You're using the wrong tool for the wrong job to make a point that doesn't need to be made because it's a redundant point. Anyway, I should go now. That's well over. I'm going to do a lot of editing. Shall see you tomorrow, Nikki. Hope you had a lovely Monday. Goodbye. Goodbye, Transport.